The gleaming spires of Neo-Saigon pierced the evening sky, their surfaces reflecting the last rays of the setting sun. Lena Vo stood at the window of her office in the Central Engineering Complex, watching as the city's automated systems began their nightly routines. Lights flickered on in sequence across the metropolis. Transportation pods whispered along their magnetic tracks, and delivery drones buzzed between buildings like mechanical fireflies. As chief engineer of the Global Network Maintenance Division, Lena took pride in the seamless operation of the technological marvels that powered daily life. In 2135, the world had achieved what previous generations could only dream of, a fully integrated global energy and data network that eliminated scarcity and maximized efficiency. "The quarterly diagnostics look good," said a voice behind her. "Neural efficiency up 2% from last month." Lena turned to see her friend and colleague, Min Tran, nicknamed Scissors for his uncanny ability to cut through both physical and metaphorical problems. Despite his formal title as Chief Mechanical Systems Specialist, he was more commonly known for his peculiar hobby of collecting and restoring pre-automation machinery. 2% is good. Lena nodded, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face, but Omnicore's pushing for 3 by the end of the year. Min's expression soured at the mention of the global energy conglomerate. "They're always pushing, as if the current system isn't miraculous enough." Lena smiled faintly. At 35, she'd spent her entire career perfecting the technological infrastructure that made modern life possible. The idea that anything could threaten this perfectly calibrated system seemed absurd. "Dr. Hannah Lee sent over the psychological impact assessments," Lena said, changing the subject. "Apparently, the new neural interface updates are reducing stress levels across all demographics." "Of course they are," Min muttered. "When machines do all the thinking, what's left to stress about?" Lena was about to respond when her neural implant chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display projected from her wrist showed Commander An, head of city security, his usually stoic face tight with concern. "Chief Engineer Vo," he began without preamble, "we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations in the upper atmosphere. Satellite readings suggest—" The hologram flickered and died. For a moment, Lena stared at her blank wrist display, waiting for the connection to re-establish. Then the lights went out. Then the soft hum of the building's systems fell silent. Then the distant noise of the city, the perpetual background murmur of technology that was so omnipresent most people no longer consciously registered it, ceased. The sudden, absolute silence was deafening. Through the window, Lena watched in horror as darkness swept across Neo-Saigon like a tidal wave. Building by building, district by district, until the entire metropolis was swallowed by night. The only illumination came from the moon and stars, suddenly visible without the city's light pollution. "What the hell just happened?" Min whispered, joining her at the window. Lena's mind raced through possibilities, each more catastrophic than the last. "Electromagnetic pulse," she finally said. "Massive scale. Has to be. Who would—" "Doesn't matter who right now." Lena cut him off, already moving toward the emergency stairs. "What matters is getting basic systems back online before people start dying." As they descended the 20 flights of stairs in the dark, guided only by the faint glow of photoluminescent strips along the edges, Lena's mind calculated casualty projections. Hospitals with failed life support systems, vertical farms with disabled climate controls, water purification plants, transportation networks. Millions of lives hung in the balance, dependent on technology that had just failed completely. When they reached the building's lobby, they found chaos. Employees stumbled around in the dark, their neural implants dead, many experiencing genuine panic at the sudden disconnection from the global network. "Listen up," Lena shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "This is Chief Engineer Vo. We have experienced what appears to be a global EMP event. All electronic systems are down. For how long? Someone called out. Lena hesitated. Unknown, but we need to establish manual protocols immediately. A younger engineer scoffed. Manual protocols? What is this? The Dark Ages? It is now, Min said grimly. Outside, the streets were filling with confused citizens. Most had never experienced even a momentary power outage in their lives. The concept of complete technological failure wasn't just frightening, it was incomprehensible. We need to get to the backup command center, Lena told Min as they pushed through the growing crowd. The one with all the electronic equipment that's now fried? He asked with a raised eyebrow. Lena allowed herself a small smile, despite the circumstances. No, the other one. They made their way through increasingly panicked crowds to an unassuming building on the outskirts of the city center, unlike the gleaming structures surrounding it. This one was old, predating the neural network era. It housed the Engineering Historical Archive, a museum of technological evolution that Lena had fought to preserve against budget cuts and modernization proposals. Inside, guided by moonlight through skylights, they found what they were looking for: the Emergency Contingency Room, a space Lena had established 5 years earlier over the objections of virtually everyone in city administration. I told them we needed non-electronic backups, she muttered as she used an actual metal key to unlock a cabinet. Nobody listened. Nobody except you, Min said, his voice tinged with newfound respect. From the cabinet, Lena retrieved hand-cranked radios, mechanical calculators, paper maps, and instruction manuals for systems that hadn't been operated manually in decades. Get those radios distributed, she ordered a small group of engineers who had followed them. We need to establish communication with other cities, find out how widespread this is. Over the next several hours, a grim picture emerged. The EMP had affected not just Neo-Saigon, but the entire planet. Every electronic system, from the most sophisticated AI to the simplest circuit, had been rendered inoperable. The global network that had connected humanity for generations was silent. As dawn broke over a city devoid of its usual technological pulse, Lena stood before a growing assembly of engineers, city officials, and concerned citizens in what had once been a public park but was now serving as an emergency gathering space. The situation is unprecedented, she announced, her voice carrying across the hushed crowd without electronic amplification. Based on preliminary assessments, the electromagnetic pulse appears to have been deliberately generated. We don't know by whom or why. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. What we do know is this: every electronic system on the planet has been disabled. The damage to circuitry is extensive, even if we had functioning manufacturing facilities, which we don't. Replacing everything would take years. So what do we do? Called out a voice from the crowd. Wait to die. Lena shook her head firmly. No, we adapt. We rebuild differently. She unrolled a large sheet of paper on a makeshift table, an actual blueprint, drawn by hand the night before. This is the Vintage Skills Revival Project, she announced. A global initiative to re-establish essential services using mechanical and analog technologies while we develop new, resilient electronic systems. The blueprint showed networks of physical cables, mechanical signal relays, water-powered generators, and wind turbines, all technologies that had been rendered obsolete by more advanced systems but were now humanity's only hope. It won't be as fast, as convenient, or as comfortable as what we're used to. Lena continued, but it will work, and nothing like this will ever be able to shut us down again. From the back of the crowd, a tall figure stepped forward. Roland Chen, the regional director of Omnicorps, regarded Lena with thinly veiled contempt. This is absurd, he announced. Omnicorps has orbital platforms unaffected by the EMP. We can re-establish satellite communications within weeks. There's no need to resort to primitive methods. Lena met his gaze steadily. And what would the cost be? Director Chen, Omnicorps controlling all communication, All power, all resources during reconstruction. A monopoly on humanity's future. Chen's expression hardened. We're offering a solution. You're offering a cage, Min interjected. Before the argument could escalate, Commander An stepped forward. The security chief looked haggard after a night of maintaining order without any of his usual technological tools. Chief Engineer Vo's plan has my support, he stated. It's comprehensive, feasible with available resources, and doesn't rely on any single entity. Chen's face flushed with anger, but he said nothing more before turning and striding away, his cadre of corporate representatives following closely. He'll be trouble, Min muttered. Later, Lena said, turning back to the blueprint. Right now, we have work to do. The following weeks saw Neo-Saigon transform. Workshop spaces were established in public buildings where engineers taught citizens basic mechanical skills long forgotten in the age of automation. The clang of hammers, the scrape of saws, and the hiss of manually operated welding equipment became the new soundtrack of the city. Min Trun found himself suddenly elevated from eccentric hobbyist to essential expert. His knowledge of pre-automation machinery made him invaluable as the city struggled to establish basic services without electronics. These gears need to be precisely calibrated. He instructed a group of former software engineers now learning mechanical transmission basics. Too loose, and you lose power. Too tight, and they'll bind. One of the engineers, a young woman who had never held a wrench before the EMP, looked up in frustration. This would take microseconds for an automation system to adjust. Yes, Min agreed, his patience evident. But an automation system isn't an option right now. Your hands are. Across the city, similar scenes played out as a society that had forgotten the most basic physical skills, relearned them out of necessity. Former neural network designers learned to operate manual looms to produce fabric. Quantum computing specialists figured out how to repair bicycles and build simple mechanical vehicles. Dr. Hannah Lee, the industrial psychologist who had previously studied the impact of technological integration on human psychology, now found herself helping people cope with technological withdrawal. Many experienced genuine physical and psychological symptoms from the sudden disconnection from the global network. It's like phantom limb syndrome, she explained to Lena during a rare moment of rest. They sat in what had once been a rooftop garden but was now being converted to a food production space. Their brains are still trying to access the network, still expecting the constant flow of information and stimulation. Will they adapt? Lena asked, watching teams of people working below, setting up mechanical water pumps for irrigation. Dr. Lee nodded. Humans are remarkably resilient. Already I'm seeing increased socialization, improved sleep patterns, and higher reported satisfaction with tangible accomplishments. Silver linings, Lena murmured. Speaking of which, Dr. Lee said, her tone changing. There's something you should know. Omnicore has established a camp outside the city. They're offering fully functional technology, preserved in EMP-shielded facilities, to anyone willing to relocate to their protected communities. Lena's jaw tightened. They're recruiting. Yes, and some are going. Mostly the wealthy and those with specialized skills Omnicore can utilize. They can't rebuild alone, Lena said. They need human capital. And they're promising a return to normalcy, Dr. Lee added. A powerful lure for those struggling with our new reality. Before Lena could respond, Min burst onto the rooftop, out of breath. We've made contact, he exclaimed. The mechanical telegraph line to Hanoi is operational. They've established similar systems and are already working on the line to Bangkok. Lena felt a surge of hope. The mechanical global network is coming together. It's slow, Min admitted. Maybe 20 words per minute, but it works. Spread the word, Lena instructed. People need to know we're not alone. As the mechanical communication network expanded, so too did resistance to Omnicore's growing influence. Reports arrived via telegraph of corporate security forces seizing resource-rich areas and pressuring communities to align with them in exchange for technological support. 3 months after the EMP, Lena called a council meeting in Neo-Saigon's newly established Mechanical Administration Center, formerly a theater, now repurposed with acoustic amplification designs that allowed large-scale meetings without electronic assistance. Omnicore isn't just offering an alternative, she informed the assembled community leaders. They're actively sabotaging our efforts. Commander An nodded grimly. 2 relay stations on the northern line were destroyed last week. Mechanical components smashed. Operators beaten. They want us dependent on their satellite network, Min added, which conveniently requires their proprietary receivers. Lena unrolled a new set of blueprints on the central table. Then we need to accelerate the Global Mechanical Line project. These are designs for telegraph amplifier stations that can boost our signal strength and protect against interference. With what resources? Asked a former factory manager. We're already stretched thin maintaining basic services. We have the most valuable resource, Lena replied. People with increasingly diverse skills. The Vintage Skills Revival Program has certified over 5,000 citizens in basic mechanical engineering principles. And what about food production? Questioned another council member. The hydroponic systems are still operating at minimal capacity without electronic regulation. Dr. Lee's team has developed manual monitoring protocols, Lena explained. Production is increasing weekly, but none of it matters if Omnicore establishes a monopoly on global communication. We'll be isolated, vulnerable, and eventually absorbed. The council debated long into the night before finally approving Lena's plan. A massive coordinated effort to complete the global mechanical line before Omnicore could consolidate its power further. The project required precision manufacturing of thousands of identical components, a challenge without automated systems. Min's solution was elegantly simple: a return to the assembly line, with each worker performing a specific task with specialized tools. Former neural programmers found themselves working alongside former service workers, former executives, former maintenance staff. The hierarchy of the old world dissolved in the face of new necessities, with respect now allocated based on skill and contribution rather than previous status. Not everyone embraced the new reality. A faction of engineers, led by the brilliant but arrogant Thomas Werner, openly criticized Lena's approach. We're wasting resources on outdated technology, Werner argued during a particularly heated council meeting. We should be focusing all efforts on rebuilding electronic systems, hardened against EMP, yes, but still electronic. With what fabrication facilities? Lena countered. Every chip manufacturer on the planet is offline. We start smaller, Werner insisted. Vacuum tubes, basic transistors. We worked our way up to neural networks once. We can do it again. In time, Lena agreed. But people need communication, power, and transportation now, not 10 years from now. The debate might have remained academic if not for Omnicore's next move. 6 months after the EMP, as Neo-Saigon was finally establishing a stable mechanical infrastructure, corporate security forces seized the city's primary water pumping station, a critical facility that had been converted to steam power. They're demanding we dismantle the mechanical telegraph network, Commander An reported, his face grim as he stood before the emergency council session. In exchange for returning water service. Blackmail, Min spat. Leverage, corrected Dr. Lee. And unfortunately effective. People can communicate through alternate means if necessary, but they cannot live without water. Lena studied the maps spread across the table, showing Omnicore's known positions around the city and the locations of critical infrastructure. We need that pumping station, she finally said. But surrendering the telegraph network is not an option. So what do we do? Asked Commander An, hands resting on the table as he leaned forward, awaiting direction. Lena's eyes narrowed as she reached a decision. We take it back. The plan they developed was bold, perhaps recklessly so. While Omnicorps had superior weapons technology preserved from their EMP-shielded facilities, the Neo-Saigon engineers had developed something the corporation hadn't anticipated: mechanical ingenuity unburdened by technological dependencies. Under cover of darkness, teams of engineers approached the water pumping station from multiple directions. Instead of attacking directly, they implemented Min's ingenious design, a network of pneumatic tubes that could redirect the flow of water around Omnicorps' occupation. They've seized the facility, but the water itself doesn't care who controls the pumps, Min explained as they watched from a concealed position. We're essentially creating a bypass. The operation was nearly complete when searchlights suddenly illuminated the area. Omnicorps security forces had detected the activity. "Run!" Lena shouted as the first shots were fired. The engineering team scattered, but not before completing the critical connections. By morning, water was flowing again to most of Neo-Saigon, bypassing Omnicorps' control entirely. The corporation's response was swift and ruthless. Armed drones, technology that shouldn't have been operational after the EMP, appeared over the city, targeting key mechanical infrastructure. "How are they flying drones?" Min demanded as they took shelter in an underground workshop. "Every electronic system was fried." They must have had shielded manufacturing facilities. Lena realized. They've been building new systems while we've been restoring old ones. The attack forced the Neo-Saigon Council to accelerate their timetable. The global mechanical line couldn't wait any longer. It needed to be operational immediately, allowing them to coordinate resistance across continents. "We need to get to the central hub," Lena told her core team. "If we can activate the main relay, we can connect all existing regional networks simultaneously." The central hub, located in what had once been Neo-Saigon's primary data center, was now the nexus of the mechanical communication system. Massive gears, pulleys, and pneumatic tubes had replaced servers and fiber optics, creating a physical manifestation of what had once been virtual. But Omnicorps knew its importance too. As Lena's team approached, they found the facility surrounded by corporate security forces and aerial drones. "Frontal approach is suicide," Commander An assessed, surveying the situation through a brass spyglass. "They have the high ground and superior firepower." "Then we go under," Lena decided. The ancient sewer system beneath Neo-Saigon had been mapped and renovated as part of the water reclamation project. Guided by those maps, Lena led a small team through the dark tunnels, navigating by compass and hand-drawn charts. They emerged inside the central hub's maintenance area, only to find Thomas Werner and his faction already there, working feverishly on equipment that was decidedly not mechanical. "Werner," Lena hissed, "what are you doing?" The engineer jumped, then relaxed upon recognizing her. "What needs to be done?" he replied, gesturing to the device his team was assembling. "A localized EMP generator." Lena stared in shock. "You're going to fry our own systems?" "Our mechanical systems will be unaffected," Werner explained impatiently. "But Omnicorps' drones and weapons will drop from the sky. It's our only chance to level the playing field." "And what about the progress they've made rebuilding electronic infrastructure?" Lena demanded. "You'll set everyone back to zero again." "Better that than letting them control everything," Werner shot back. "This is war. There are casualties in war." For a moment, Lena was tempted. Omnicorps' technological advantage was the greatest threat to the independent recovery effort. But the implications of Werner's plan were too severe. "No," she decided. "We find another way." Werner's expression hardened. "There is no other way." "There's always another way," Min interjected, studying the central hub's mechanical systems with a practiced eye. "The gears, Lena, look at the configuration." Lena followed his gaze, understanding dawning. The massive interlocking gears that powered the mechanical communication system could be reconfigured, their mechanical energy redirected. "You want to weaponize the hub itself," she realized. Min nodded. Not to destroy, to disrupt. If we can generate enough mechanical vibration at the right frequency, we could jam their drone control signals. Lena finished. Excitement building. Werner, how sensitive are their communication systems? Despite his frustration at having his plan rejected, Werner's scientific curiosity was piqued. They're using narrow-band transmission to maximize range with minimal power. Then they're vulnerable to interference, Lena concluded. We don't need to destroy their technology. We just need to make it unusable in our vicinity. The reconfiguration of the central hub was a masterpiece of improvisational engineering. Gears were realigned, tensions adjusted, and vibration amplifiers installed. The entire structure became a massive mechanical jamming device, converting rotational energy into precisely calibrated interference. It's ready, Min announced after hours of intensive work. But we need maximum power to generate enough interference. Lena looked around at the assembled engineers and citizens who had joined their effort. We need everyone. Manual power. As many people as possible on the drive wheels. The call went out across Neo-Saigon. As Omnicorps forces prepared for their final assault on the central hub, citizens poured into the facility through the underground access points. Hundreds, then thousands took positions at the massive drive wheels that would power the jamming system. When Omnicorps launched their attack, led by Director Chen himself, they were met with an unexpected phenomenon. As they approached the central hub, their drones began to falter, their communications devices emitting only static. Inside the hub, people strained at the drive wheels, the combined effort of thousands generating the mechanical energy needed to disrupt Omnicorps' electronic systems. The massive gears turned, picking up speed, their synchronized movements creating vibration patterns that rendered sophisticated technology useless. Director Chen, watching from his command vehicle as his drones fell from the sky, finally understood. They've turned the entire building into a mechanical jamming device, he realized with a mixture of fury and reluctant admiration. With their technological advantage neutralized in the vicinity of the hub, Omnicorps forces were outmatched by the sheer number of Neo-Saigon citizens defending their independence. The corporation was forced to retreat, their attempt to seize the heart of the global mechanical line thwarted. But the battle for Neo-Saigon was just one engagement in a global conflict. As the central hub activated, connecting mechanical communication lines across continents, reports flooded in of similar struggles worldwide. Communities fighting for self-determination against corporate control. Engineers adapting old technologies to new purposes. People rediscovering the power of direct, physical engagement with the world around them. 1 year after the EMP, Lena stood on the observation platform of the central hub, watching the enormous gears turn in their precisely choreographed dance. The mechanical global network was fully operational, connecting cities and communities across the planet without a single microchip or line of code. Message from Berlin, Min reported, handing her a slip of paper with a decoded telegraph transmission. They've completed the European loop. The entire Northern Hemisphere is now connected. Lena smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment deeper than anything she'd experienced in her previous life as an electronic systems engineer. And Omnicorps? Still operating from their orbital platforms and secure facilities, Min admitted. But their influence is waning. Without control of critical infrastructure, their technological advantages mean less and less. Dr. Lee joined them, carrying her own report. The psychological adaptation studies are complete. 93% of citizens report equal or greater life satisfaction compared to pre-EMP levels. Despite the hardships, Lena asked, surprised. Dr. Lee nodded. Many cite increased sense of purpose, stronger community connections, and satisfaction from tangible accomplishments. The constant neural stimulation of the old world masked a profound sense of disconnection many weren't even aware they felt. Commander Anne arrived next. his formerly pristine uniform now replaced by practical, hand-woven garments that had become the norm in the new Neo-Saigon. "The last of the corporate holdouts have requested integration," he reported. "Omnicor's ground forces have been reduced to protecting their own facilities. They no longer pose a threat to independent infrastructure." Lena took in the information, considering its implications. "And Werner's group?" "Still working on electronic restoration," Min said. "But with a different approach now. They're designing resilient, distributed systems that can withstand future attacks. No central points of failure." "Good," Lena nodded. "We'll need both approaches for what comes next." "Which is?" Commander An inquired. Lena unfurled a new set of blueprints, the most ambitious yet. "The Dual Systems Integration Project, a global infrastructure that combines the best of mechanical reliability with the best of electronic capability, redundant, resilient, and belonging to everyone." The plans showed a world where mechanical systems provided the backbone for essential services: water, power, transportation, communication, while specialized electronic systems enhanced capabilities without creating critical dependencies. "It won't be as seamless as the old world," Lena acknowledged. "But it will be stronger, more resilient, and, most importantly, controlled by the people who depend on it." As word of the new project spread via the mechanical telegraph network, responses came from around the world, offers of resources, expertise, and support. The global community, fragmented by the EMP but reconnected through necessity and ingenuity, was uniting around a shared vision of the future. 2 years after the EMP, the first integrated power plant came online in Neo-Saigon. Wind turbines and water wheels generated mechanical energy, which was then converted to electricity for non-essential systems, with the mechanical components always capable of operating independently if needed. The global mechanical line evolved, incorporating limited electronic enhancements while maintaining its essential mechanical nature. Information flowed more freely than ever, but now through a network owned and operated by the communities it served, rather than corporate entities. Omnicor, its monopolistic ambitions thwarted, eventually restructured under public pressure. Their technological resources were gradually integrated into the global system, their expertise contributing to, rather than controlling, the rebuilding effort. 5 years after the EMP, Lena Vo stood in the central plaza of Neo-Saigon, now a thriving metropolis that bore little resemblance to its pre-EMP incarnation. Gone were the sterile, automated systems that had once rendered human involvement unnecessary. In their place was a vibrant blend of technologies, some ancient, some modern, some entirely new, all designed to enhance human capability rather than replace it. "They're calling it the Mechanical Renaissance," Min commented as they watched a new cohort of students graduate from the Engineering Academy, an institution that taught everything from gear design to quantum computing with equal emphasis. "I prefer vintage skills revival," Lena replied with a smile. "It's where it all began." The mysterious origin of the EMP was eventually discovered, a desperate act by a coalition of scientists who had recognized the dangerous fragility of a world utterly dependent on centralized technology. Their intention had not been to destroy, but to reset, to give humanity a chance to rebuild with wisdom gained from the experience. In that, they had succeeded beyond their expectations. The world that emerged from the crisis was neither a return to the past nor a continuation of the previous future. It was something new, a civilization that understood both the power and the limitations of its tools, that valued resilience over efficiency, and that placed human agency at the center of technological development. As the sun set over Neo-Saigon, the city came alive with a symphony of sounds, the rhythmic turning of gears, the hiss of steam, the gentle hum of carefully managed electronics, and most importantly, the voices of people engaged in the daily work of building and maintaining their world. Lena listened to this harmony with satisfaction, remembering the silence that had fallen 5 years earlier. From catastrophe had come opportunity, the chance to build something better, something that could weather any storm, adapt to any challenge. The vintage skills revival had become more than a project. It had become a philosophy, a recognition that true progress lay not in increasing dependence on technology, but in maintaining the knowledge and ability to live without it if necessary. As darkness fell, lights came on across the city, some electric, some gas, some simple oil lamps, a diversified illumination symbolic of the path humanity had chosen. No single source, no single system, no single point of failure. In her pocket, Lena carried a gear from the original mechanical telegraph, a simple toothed wheel that had helped reconnect a fragmented world. She ran her fingers over its worn edges, feeling the physical embodiment of the principle that had guided her through the crisis and beyond. The strongest systems are those that bend but do not break, that evolve but remember their origins, that embrace the future while honoring the wisdom of the past. The vintage skills revival had given humanity a second chance, not to reject technology, but to redefine its relationship with it. And in that redefinition lay the promise of a more resilient, more human future.